Hey guys, it's Jake. In the last video, we created all the characters for the roster, and in this video, we're gonna dive into some new stuff, so let's get into it. So now that we have all the characters done for the game, I wanted to bring them in to Unity so that I could see how they looked walking around the scene. The way I had set it up is that they just all spawn in the same spots every time, same person, and they just walk forward. And that's no fun. That's not gonna work. We wanted to have some variation. So I just made a script that's kind of like the one that spawns cars. It spawns the characters in different locations and in different rotations, basically heading up the street or down the street. And it can be up or down on either side of the street, which gives it a good variation, while also it chooses a random person to put in, and it also assigns based on that their correct texture. The next thing I wanted to do, I had been testing the upgrades and I really found that I didn't like using the stopwatch, because basically the way I had set it up before, for those that don't know, is it would take away from your speed that you had. So like you'd be going pretty fast and then suddenly you'd take away like up to 20 and you could go back to even 40 miles per hour. And that's really not something I wanted to do, because if you fully upgraded that, it basically made it like, I guess, overpowered. It would just bring you back to like the start of the game, but you'd be racking up those points, and that's just not fair. So what I decided instead, I didn't want to get rid of the stopwatch. I like the stopwatch. I already made the icon and a 3D model for it and it inserted it into the game with some game logic. So I wanted to make a system around it that I could modify better. And so I decided, or I came up with the idea that I would, instead of decreasing when you collide with it, it'll just take your speed and it'll just halt it at that for a certain amount of time based on how many upgrades that you've applied to it. So if it's fully upgraded, it could be 30 seconds, I think is what it is, if it's fully upgraded. Otherwise, less than that. It might be 25 seconds, but. So then I wanted some visual cues for the player to understand what's going on. So instead of just halting the speed, I went ahead and added some color variation to it. So when you hit it, it displays it in red so that it's a jarring color, so you notice that it's not going up. So after this, I was playing through the game and I realized that I was having a hard time. You can turn anywhere on the tile. Okay, so like the way I have it set up is that there's left turns, right turns, and T tiles. So if your character's above it, you're allowed to turn. That's what makes it so if it can tell whether or not you're allowed to turn. But there's a problem with this. If you do that and you do it too early, you can run into buildings, you can run off the map, and it's just not good. So I wanted to create a way that this would be a little bit better, so just make it a little more, you have to turn in a certain area. And the best way to do this was just obviously to add a box collider where I want you to be able to turn within the tile. And basically it just checks if you're on the tile, and then it checks if you're in the box collider, or like within the box boundaries. I just applied that to the 3 tiles and it worked well. Following this, because I had all the characters done, I wanted to go back into the player customization menu and do exactly what I did with the vehicles, where you can pick a car and unlock it. And I just implemented the same code. I had to rework it a little bit just because the vehicle one was set up to work with colors, and with the player, there's no color variation on it. So I had to rework the script. I then applied it to the player section and everything seemed to work. From there, I just needed to implement it into the actual game. So I just made a script that checks if the player, or which player was selected, and then I, from there, would insert that model into the game. It's so hot in here, I'm dying. So the next thing I wanted to do is I really wanted to finish the player customization menu. And the only thing left to do on it was to add the license plate. So I didn't really know how to do this, so I looked around to figure out the best way to do it, and I found out that you can actually just put Text Mesh Pro objects behind in a 3D space, and it'll turn with it, and it just will work so good. So then I just needed to make a way for the player to type it in the menu. But basically what it'll do is it'll appear with a tap to enter text, and you just type it in, and I made it so you can only type in 6 characters so like text doesn't just go forever. It limits it to that, and it keeps it at a good size that you can visibly see your license plate. And from what I know, I think most license plates, at least where I'm from, are 6 characters anyway, so good. I then just added the unlock functionality to it, and it's the same type that I was using for both the vehicle selection and the player selection, so it was pretty easy to plug that in and get it working. So from here, I tested it out. The license plates seemed to work, but then I realized if you switched cars, there's different lengths on them, so I had to adjust the script to base the position of the license plate based on the model that was chosen as the player's vehicle. And it didn't take me that long to figure that out, but it was a necessary step. The next thing I wanted to work on was my links for my game. So in the settings menu, currently it really didn't do much. All you could do was go to the credits menu, and there were even links in the credits menu to my social media sites, but you couldn't actually click on them. So I just added the hyperlinks into the code and made it so the buttons could access those. It'll just link it to the website on whatever platform you're doing it on. So like on a Mac, it would open Safari, and that's what you can see here. So I linked my apparel, and I linked all my social media sites, and I also took out Facebook. We went over that in the last episode, and I'm not going to use it, so why even link it? So it's just Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube right now. So yeah, following that, I started dabbling into sound effects. None of them are done yet, so I'm not going to show any of them, maybe in the next video. But yeah, I would just like to thank you guys for watching this video and sticking around to the end of it. And if you want to play my game that's currently out right now, it's Crosswalk the game, and it's on the App Store, and I'll have it linked in the description. Otherwise, if you want to follow the project in other ways, I do post on social media sometimes. Sometimes. Mainly Twitter, generally. I like Twitter the most, so that's the one. Anyway, I have them linked down in the description as well. So go ahead and take a look at those if you're interested. And yeah, thanks for watching.